Well, hello, hello. Today we have a special episode for Soulful and Ambitious podcast. So it's my pleasure to introduce my special guest for my birthday. It's my morning birthday. Right now we're recording it on April 24. And we met in a coaching school just about a few months ago that we graduated from the mastery of ICM Institute for Coaching Mastery. Had to think about it. And I absolutely love to interact with this amazing human being who was always deep and profound in his thinking. And he also helped me um, at my, I suppose, darkest moment in life. And I loved what he said. And that's what we'll be talking about today. And I'll talk more about it. But first, let me introduce Parm Bains. He is a founder of Empowered Living Mastery. With decades of experience, Parm delves into the root causes of challenges, facilitating lasting change. He guides individuals through personal and professional journeys, merging spirituality and mental, somatic, and emotional exploration to uncover the essence of being human. Parm's mission is to rediscover the art of living, empowering others to embrace transformative journeys towards mastery and fulfillment. Such a gift. So today we will be talking about all kinds of different subjects, but especially because it's also been 1 year anniversary since my mom's passing. And that's when I had a pleasure to talk to Parm about the concept of losing somebody, about a concept of when we transition into another dimension. And what he said to me and shared with me was very profound. So, Parm, first of all, good morning, good afternoon. You're joining us from England. Thank you. So, how are you today?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you, Jules, and thank you for the kind words in your introduction. First of all, happy birthday.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to being here on your birthday.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm very good. I'm very honored and very excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. So, first, I would like to start with the concept of loss. And I know when I was kind of in the accelerated journey of understanding and experiencing duality and losing, and also it's my birthday and all of that, I remember during those times, I was very confused, but wasn't quite sure when people were saying, like, I'm sorry for your loss.
Hmm.
So in my mind, I thought that, like, when they were saying that, it was almost to me felt like, what did I do wrong? Why are they sorry? And then in my mind, I have reconciled that as, you know, it does not belong to me. So it's just how it is. However, I was very confused. And I remember when you offered your help and we were in a Zoom meeting and you did not say that. And I remember I asked you, can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
Why are you not saying what everybody else says? And I know they mean well, and that's the intention and it's tradition, like I know, but there was something with me was just inside, like protesting that. And
Hmm.
I noticed you didn't say that. And I would love for us to kind of start from that point. And if you share your perspective and how you understand this, I'm sorry for your loss situation. That sounds
Yeah,
very
of
proud
course.
of me. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you again for your kind words. And I think, yeah, this whole concept of loss, and I think like fittingly or however it's aligned, today is actually also the anniversary of my dad passing 8 years ago, which
Oh,
is kind of
yes.
the trigger of kind of my whole journey or the kickstart, whichever way you look at it. And this whole concept of loss, like those words were said to me a lot as well. At the time, I did take some comfort from them because it was what I was expecting people to say, and it was like what people care. And it's almost like this through generations and understanding, we've just picked up on something that people say, and then it's just followed, not fully understanding the consequences of the words themselves or what they can mean, right? So this concept of loss is something that you have and then you no longer have. It's like there and it's not. And what actually goes eventually is the body, right? After the rituals or whatever they are. And
Mhm.
this whole understanding of actually our loved ones are not the body which we perceive them in, even the ones that are alive now. It's there's a deeper essence to it, which is our bodies in effect come from dust and go to dust. If you look at just the physical matter of the body, right?
Mhm.
And it's actually as you experience someone passing, like with my dad, it was literally just after midnight on the 24th of April in 2016 when he passed, and he was very much at peace then. He wasn't in any pain. And as he took that last breath, it was a life within him that was no longer present within the body. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was very much in that form of lost my dad, or I no longer have my dad, whichever way we say it. And what I've come to realize as I've dived deeper and deeper into this question is like that life that was within him that no longer is there is actually the life flowing within me. There's no difference to it. It's the aliveness within us that we feel as a reflection from another human being, or a person, an object, or an animal, whatever it may be, that we create some level of attachment to. Like it's like they're giving us some love, but it's actually the love within us that we're feeling. Now, the beauty behind that is, as I realized that, I actually never had my dad. I never lost him. He's simply the experience within me that's flowing.
Mhm.
Whatever experience, if I recall any memory of my dad now, good, bad, sad, to some extent, I can recall that experience again because it's within me. And it's effectively a reflection of a memory, which I can say with gratitude because I can still embrace all of those experiences. I'm totally at peace with the fact that my dad passed. And I'm fully accepting of that. And I think that the moment I got that, that really gave me this inner freedom of just like, oh my God, what I thought I lost, I actually never had in the first place. Right. And I said that to many people as I realized this, where they still say, oh, it was, your dad went too soon, or whatever happened. And I think what I say to them is actually, he didn't come or go too soon. It was just simply, he was on this life journey for 71 years, and I got to share them for 38 years with him. And
Mm.
I'm still experiencing the life, and the body that he was in no longer is. But the essence of who he is still here. So
Mm.
that's how I would summarize in a nutshell my understanding of this concept of loss, and why I don't think it ultimately serves, even though everyone's intention when they say the words are pure. So there's no judgment to it.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful realization. You can never lose something that you never had.
Yeah.
So yeah, and essentially, when you look at this like that, you are transcending the suffering of the human. So if we let the ego go, which comes with attachment, so yes, and that attachment essentially creates suffering. But in the big realm of things, the last breath does not belong to me, to you, to anyone. And this is that higher power, or whatever we want to call it, that higher energy that is always here within us, and we are part of it. So, which again, like I was waking up to all of those spiritual concepts, but I thought I was on a very much accelerated journey because the past version of me who was attached to my mom, I was always having that fear. I was scared. And I even remember telling myself, like, if she is gone, that's it, my life is over. Because that is just, it doesn't, because we've always been together, just maybe like a few years here and there separate, but always been together. So, and where I was coming from before wasn't necessarily love or love for myself and all of that. And now I can see how my view of myself, which wasn't very pretty or good, that's how I viewed the world. That's why the death was a very scary concept.
Hmm.
And I feel like I was led by higher power and stepped into this coaching world where I started to just like learn. Plus, that situation happened, which was very involved with my mom. So, and I was just on this accelerated journey. Like at one point, I was waking up to my greatness and who I am and to love, which was always like that vulnerable subject to me. And then all of that was happening. And then her passing, I was like feeling in between, like I wasn't anchoring on earth and I wasn't still like somewhere on the cloud trying to figure it out. So that's why I remember that we met together, and how you put it, it just gave me so much peace and comfort, and almost like let me got anchored to that greater love that I felt like I was stepping into, but still wasn't quite having 2 feet in that realm, because it felt like strange and scary. It's like, how do you, what is this love thing? So when I just like, she's gone, and like it was just very much um confusion for me. But then I remember you were talking about that ocean example. Do you mind sharing it?
Yeah, of course. I'll happily share. And I think just before I get to that, the one thing I will reflect is, and I can't remember if we discussed this in our conversation last year, is this whole sense of the uneasiness that you've described in your experience of letting go and then still embracing this new world is almost like part of our identity starts to die.
Mhm.
That this identity with you that wanted to be the good daughter or the good girl or whatever that might have been, at some stage realizes actually that that role is no longer there to be played, right? Because it's an interaction with your mum that passed. And then at the same time, as you're discovering this new experience of actually just being at one with everything and
Mhm.
embracing the love, if you like, without sounding too esoteric, it's not that that's unnatural, it's just very unfamiliar. It's unfamiliar ground, and this whole process of something dying and something being born generally does involve resistance and friction because it's a change, right? So I just wanted to reflect that first of all for you. And the example with the ocean would be like, if you say you're in the US now and I'm in the UK, if we both went to the nearest coastline, wherever we were, and then we step into that ocean, we're actually stepping into the same ocean. No matter what like the geography says, ultimately when we step into that ocean and we put our foot into the water, it's the same ocean no matter where it is in the world. And this whole connection of life and oneness is exactly the same. There's no difference. And I think the example came from someone I had a conversation with where this chap, his dad passed, but they lived in different countries for many years. So I said, did you feel the same sense of grief when your dad was here and he was in another country? And he's like, no. I said, so what was the difference? And he said, because I always thought I'd meet him again.
Mhm.
And then I gave him this example of the ocean and actually see it's not about never meeting him, you're never separated. And that's, I think, the profundity of that example. It just shows there's no sense of separation because we're all connected. The life within us is always connected, and everything that creates a suffering is just mental talk and narrative. Not just, but it comes from a mind-based activity, which is a
Mhm.
collection of thoughts and feelings and sensations.
Yes, and that's what, yes, I've been more and more waking up to the idea of oneness, and we're part of one, just like someone. So it's a
Yeah.
one. That's why it's so important. And also what we do in coaching, just as we transform one person at a time. So that's how we transform the world. It's not the other way around, because you cannot stop this big ocean, but you can take care of like one wave at a time because it's still part of that ocean. That's why, yes, ocean is so vast and it's, yeah, everywhere, and water is everywhere. And yes, you might be in England and I might be in the US, but we're still so connected, even just like, I guess, internet and Zoom. So I can actually see you, I can sense you, I can look in your eyes. So, which is like the representation that we're so connected, even though like I cannot touch you, but you're here and we can share and we can flow. And that's amazing concept. And I think that's what I've also been waking up through my whole spiritual experience and everything, is that I am not alone. And I think all my other suffering that I created for about 50 years is, yes, it comes from that separation. Because, and that's how I looked at my life, like for many years, like I'm here to suffer, God doesn't love me, I'm not good enough. Why is people, better here, but I'm not good enough, that's why I don't have it, and all of that. So I was constantly like raised and felt, and also the culture that I come from, like Russia. So it's always like that culture of lack. And obviously, we had a strange relationship like with God and all of that. So I was very confused. And that's what I see right now, that that sense of separation, that I'm alone and I'm here to suffer and everybody else is better, was really my narrative. And yeah, that caused a lot of suffering, which that's what I was, I think, afraid of all the time. So when something bad was happening, like, life situations, I always took that something is wrong with me and I'm here to be punished. So, which is really not a pretty concept to live in. But again, the culture I came for, it was a cultural experience. So it was like a part of it, like going back to connection.
Mm.
So I learned, and acquired a lot of it. And then coming to America, yes, like it was different, but still kind of the same. And this is that concept of duality, also just like even how my mom my mom ended. It's also like yesterday it was her 1 year anniversary, today is my birthday, and it's like I continue learning the lesson of duality.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because life is duality. How can we stay in that freedom and see the love, even though it's just this concept of, duality is here. And that's what I like living this year and last year. It was just, it was weird.
Yeah, it's a really, really powerful question, because what I'm hearing you ask is, how do we experience duality and not suffer the resistance of separation, right? Like that's what I'm hearing from you. And just before we get to that, I guess we should explain, or I'd like to explain the concept of non-duality, which is there is no separation. Everything is one. Every
Mm,
life is one. It's all joined. There's no other. There's no separate. Now, in the human form, there is obviously this experience of there's you and there's me. There's this and there's that. There's always opposites, right? There's happiness and there's sadness. It's part of the human experience. What I feel has kind of over generations evolved, certainly now in recent times with social media and our brain constantly interacting and wanting kind of satisfaction, is this this concept of constantly surviving, right?
Mm,
Like the example you shared about not being separated or not being okay. I'm the bad one or I'm the wrong one because of the culture you grew up in. So you've learned that at some stage as a language of survival. Like I have to negate myself or make myself bad or wrong before someone else does.
mm,
Because if I'm not careful with that, then I might do something wrong and then the consequences will be more severe. Like something along those lines from the ego perspective. Now, in in ancient tribal times, when you're living in a community, yeah, upsetting people isn't a great idea because you want to be part of a community. You don't want to be alone, where the wild animals can just come and get you and there's no threat on their part. But in the current world, what we do is we show up on a day-to-day basis, or many of us will show up on a day-to-day basis with that same survival instinct, even though there's no actual threat to our life. Like if we go to a coffee shop and say some very unkind words to someone, it's not a great way to make friends, but it's not the end of our survival, so to speak. But there'll be something within us saying, well, actually, I'm having this conversation with Jules. I can't say this and I can't say this and I can't say that. Because if it's perceived the wrong way, then that will mean something about me. And in that fear, we're constantly trying to survive. And I think that the beauty of certainly our journeys as coaches and humans is to help each wave connect with another wave and help them see that actually they're simply part of the ocean and they can still experience what they're seeing as being a separate wave. Like what we experience in our life is a gift. That's the way I see it. Even that moment when my dad passed, like for a long time after I came to that realization, I'd say like my dad passing is one of the greatest gifts of my life. I slightly changed that language now and think the experience I
mm,
went as a human as my dad passed was the gift, not him actually passing. Right.
mm,
It's what I experienced, which was the gift. It got me to realize actually for years, Palm, you just weren't even acknowledging what you were feeling.
mm,
And there's a deeper element to it, right? Like let's embrace the profundity and the wholeness of the human experience and not just focus on one part and just shut it out because it's too scary. Like let it be there, let it allow. In the somatic work we've done in the ICM, just literally let your feelings and emotions be there, embrace them. And this notion of actually, well, if I feel them too much, still stay doesn't stand up because nothing is permanent in this world, right? Everything changes. That's the whole point of duality. Nothing is permanent. The only one thing that is permanent is the essence of who we are, and that's the life flowing through us, which we have absolutely no control over. So we can just embrace. So I don't know if that fully answered your question, but if not, happy to allude further to it.
mm. No, I think it did. So yeah, I like what you said that I wrote it down, but then I don't know. Yeah, in the beginning, what you said, it's all one. So there is no really duality because it's all just a continuum, because it's not that you're just happy all the time, but somehow I guess our ego, that persona, and maybe that's how I thought, like I'm supposed to be happy and I'm not happy, and there's something wrong with me. But it's really just a part of oneness because there's happiness on this side, on this end, but on the other end, it's sadness. But in between, it's that movement, it's that flow because you explore variations of happiness, variations of sadness.
Mhm.
And as we experience that as one, this is the wholeness, like you said, a whole experience of the human. It's not just being happy. That's why we have that toxic positivity nowadays, right? And that's where I think the wholeness is essentially love and wholeness. They're like one because that's what love is. And I think that's where I was also confused about that. Loving, that means you're just loving when I'm good. And of course we have reward systems in a world and all of that. So, but now what I'm understanding, so it's not that. Love is a container that holds all of it. So, like loving myself when I am bad, quote to quote, or when I am sad, or when I'm frustrated, or when I'm crying 5 minutes and then next minute I'm laughing. So, like that's what love, which is that unconditional love, just like our teacher Lisa likes to say, love has no agenda.
Mm.
And that's what I've been waking up to that greater love. And I remember even like when I was working through my own I'm not good enough persona that I created, that's how I dissolved it. Because I was always trying to tell myself, like, I'm not good enough and I love you. And like when I say that, I just smile and I laugh, and all of it just comes out of me, and I'm not attached to it anymore. And I'm having fun with my I'm not good enough, and I'm getting to know her. And that was like such a profound experience, but so simple. And also, what I understand now is like love is infinite, but all the other emotions that we go through is just all human emotions that we experience here. But love is what stays. Like we came from love. What love is, we experience. Love stays because it's like part of oneness. That's why it's a it's a whole. Like love is a whole, I guess. That's what I've been really naming for myself, this experience, like journey to wholeness. And that's who I am becoming. And I feel like that's my transcending experience of loving myself at all forms of myself. Like when I am, weak or don't know anything or whatever, or some other things come. And that's what's powerful. Like I guess love and power is one. And that's where I feel like I'm standing or stepping into my power. But it also feels like sometimes it feels like it's a lot. Like if we think about that, I am limitless in all possibility. I feel like I cannot handle that. So I don't know what your experience is or how you can maybe phrase it, like that love, wholeness, and essentially that's that umbrella of embracing duality of life through love.
Yeah, I love the way you articulated it. It was beautiful, and I think love is a word that's used in so many different contexts, right? Like in this aspect, it's the oneness, the essence of everything we are. And before I kind of get to the profundity of the energy of that love that everything lives in, I think the other thing to kind of touch up on is we have highs and lows, which we call highs and lows, like they're mental narratives, right? There's happiness and there's sadness, there's a boost or there's a deflation, whatever it might be. There's hot and there's cold. And we need one to experience the other, the yin and the yang. But as it flows, there's something at the core and center of that, which the word I really love to use is equanimity.
Mm.
Everything is just equal, like there's no good, no bad. And that energy, which we refer to here as love, if we stick with the same word, the wholeness, is always present.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't go anywhere, right? Like you shared a moment ago, like you have a commitment to find your wholeness. It's in my opinion, the more accurate reflection will be a commitment to unveil the wholeness that is already there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So say if we just use, for example, silence as another word for love. Silence isn't created by the removal of sound. Sound arises from and dissolves back into silence. So experience, we don't have to remove experience to discover our wholeness. We just have to see that experience comes from and dissolves back into wholeness, which contains everything. Even the parts of the sorrow or the self-judgment and all of that, it's always held in this wider energy of just simply being at one with everything. So that would be my reflection on the whole energy of love, and it's containing all of it. And like Alyssa said, love has no agenda. It's so pure because the only thing that has an agenda is the mind,
Mhm.
formation of language. I want to get to this, or if I do this, someone will do this for me. Conditional love, if you like, is what it's often referred to. But even the mind and its agenda exist within this equanimous energy of love. They're not separate from it. They're not outside of it. It still dissolves back into the same space. So again, bringing back to this connection of the essence of who we are, we always know we're always held. And you mentioned power, which I'll reflect on briefly. I use it in quite a few conversations I have with clients as well. I said, really recognize that this essence of who you are, this silence, if you can get to it, and it doesn't mean you have to sit there for hours in silence, it's just a momentary reflection, is that in that space, power becomes irrelevant because it doesn't need to exist. Does that make sense? Like there's no need for power if there's no other. Power is only if we want to get somewhere and we have to use it. And so in duality, we use it for sure, right? Like we want to be powerful. We want to have a powerful mindset. All of it exists. But when everything is one and there's no other, then power becomes irrelevant. It's just being.
Yes. And I think that's the context I was kind of implying, like empowered, because uh when I was in the language of I'm not enough and I'm separate and I'm not part of the wholeness, that just felt very disempowered. I guess it's really just kind of abandoning myself and my essence and my existence. So that's why what I was implying, not that powerful, like I'm powerful than somebody else, but it's just being, I guess,
Mm,
recognizing my being, and from that connection, just feeling empowered, like essentially like owning my space in life because I feel like I didn't before. And essentially like not respecting the higher creation, or so to speak, because I was denying myself and my existence, which was this empowering way to live and exist.
yeah, of
And that's the way I was referring to, just like honoring my existence.
course.
What you're saying, like, yeah, it's just me being me. And that's, I think that's what I am realizing. It's the power of being. And I'm already that, which is the part of the bigger creation. Like you said, it's not just like love comes and goes.
Mhm.
It's always there. It's just my awareness of love and who I am. That's what comes and goes. And that's, I guess, what you're saying, that it's not that I'm looking and getting more accumulation to confirm this is who I am, but it's actually coming back to the journey and recognizing this is who I already am, reconnecting with that so that I show up in life from that place.
Mm,
Everything that I do or create is just an extension of who I am being. That's why it's so important. Like I might be doing whatever I'm doing in life, but who am I being in that moment? Am I being that who already recognizes I am all? I don't need anything. Or I am that who is trying to accumulate the next certificate and the next whatever, so that I am better and now I'm confirmed. So is that kind of what I'm sensing, interpreting
yeah,
from what
absolutely. And then I think the word power is relevant in the context of
you
the person that is Jules, that wants to get somewhere and do something. So it's not that it's totally irrelevant. I'm just saying in that space it's not.
said?
But we can still be powerful and we can still have human experiences and just know that we're ultimately held by life. It's kind of the energy of thriving as opposed to surviving, where many of us over decades develop these programs of not being good enough or not safe or whatever it might be, and not feeling like we fit in. They're all survival mechanisms. which are always there. We never actually get rid of them. They effectively dissolve when we unravel them. So they're not as dominant, but they get to come on the journey with us through life. Because at some point we might actually need that, right? The not fitting in or whatever. Like it's still a relevant conversation in some context in duality in our life, but not on a daily basis, right? We get into our own car, we go to work, we go to the grocery store, we buy groceries. We do a lot of these things. And when I say we, I'm talking at the level of the personality. We still interact with the world. We have responsibilities. But ultimately, it's if we do it from an aspect of thriving, by actually recognizing the essence of who we are and then saying, okay, this is just an experience that's playing out for the person that is Palm or Jules. And actually, it's the simplest way I can describe it is it's about objectifying your mind and body as opposed to it being the subject of who you are. Most people, that certainly when I first start to work with them, they see that the mind and body is who they are.
Hmm.
I am this person that's Palm, and this is the body, and this is all me. I'm saying if they're objects in the experience of the essence of who I am, so if I am life, the mind is something that I can see, the body is something that I experience. Now, all of a sudden, the game changes because you can rationalize and have a reflection on it. Or I don't have to follow every thought that pops up in my head. I don't have to be driven by every sensation and emotion that I experience in my body. Yes, recognize them, reflect on them, allow them to be there, but they don't drive the behavior that I'm about to play out. It's like an objective experience. Does that make sense?
Well, is it something that I know in yoga, I heard that before, that we say, um, I am not my thoughts and thoughts are not me, because there is that bigger higher essence. So like they also say, you're always spiritual being first and then mind and body. So is that kind of like what you're relating to? Like you mentioned I am life, or
Yeah.
like that spirit. And if awareness, like I know when we did coaching, you're always saying this higher awareness,
Hmm.
seeing my thoughts and my experience. So, and that basically shows that we are multidimensional. So I'm not sure like object and subject that I'm getting yet. I am
Okay.
to process this
Yeah.
a little more unless we can go through that. But maybe this is that multidimensional human beings we are that helps us see ourselves. And then also, I guess, start using the power of conscious mind, because that's why we have different brain things, right? So that's why when we start consciously, I guess that will maybe the conscious living, conscious approaching ourselves and life, so we can start seeing, questioning ourselves. This is kind of like where I am right now. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the fact that we can question is something that we have available to us. But most humans won't do that because they think they are the mind and that this thought is mine. I thought this thought, so I have to believe it, right? I
Mhm.
think I'm not good enough, so it must be true because that's what I've been telling myself for 4 decades. I'll give you a brief example. Like in my experience, when I started to realize this and I really started to objectify it, I was putting some things into the loft or into the attic with my wife, and she was at the top, and I was passing her the boxes. And a little annoyance came up where I was expecting her to be on the left side, but she was on the right, putting some boxes away. And I actually visualized my mind saying, why are you over there? You should be over there. But this all happened as I visualized it. Like I didn't act upon it. I didn't say anything.
Mhm.
Like, oh my God, my monkey mind is just expecting her to be where she's not. The reality, she was over there and she wasn't on that side. And I actually told her about it like a day or two later. And I said, this is what happened. And I said, I just had a profound experience that I didn't have to react to it. So
Mm.
it's something that's there. It's almost like our body is like this gaming system controller, right? And the console is our mind. But
Mhm.
there is something else that's driving the buttons that are pressed. And
Mhm.
most people are just pressing the first button they get to because of the first thought that arises. So it takes time and practice and awareness. But we have this ability to say, well, actually, I am not the mind, and the mind is currently telling me I should be saying this, or I should be wearing this, or I should be showing this way. Is that actually a truth? Well, let me sit on the reflection for a minute. Actually, no, it doesn't mean anything about me. And we can create this distance to it. It's still effectively a mind-based activity, but a much more subtle level of the mind, right? Without going too deeply spiritual, I think. And awareness as a whole doesn't ever do anything. So this concept of awareness or life or oneness doesn't do anything. It doesn't even actually experience. It just witnesses what's happening.
Mhm.
It's just witnessing. It's not deterred by anything. There's no concept of pain or suffering at that level. And
Mhm.
I think that's the important distinction that I've particularly felt with myself personally and as I work with clients is this sense experience of emotions, painful emotions. I assert painful emotions don't necessarily exist. They can be uncomfortable because we don't like having them. But actual pain is like banging your toe on a table. That's your body telling you don't do that again. The learned narrative, which serves a purpose, right? Because if you keep doing that, you're going to break your toe and you're going to be in a lot more pain and it's not going to serve you when you're trying to walk around. But with emotions, it's different. We can allow them to go. They're just simply energy and sensations that they can flow. What we make them mean isn't a truth just because a thought tells us they're bad and we shouldn't be having them.
Mhm.
So hopefully that explains the kind of objectifying and the subject a little bit more because the subject is just who I am and the object is it's something that I have in my experience.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the example that you gave, and also it's creating that distance. That's why when I studied meditation, that's what I remember I was learning, that like how they were explaining that we practice meditation. So we basically practice quieting down so that in real life, we can essentially, I guess, consciously, because of the practice as well, we can create a pause between that moment of reacting out of what happens because we think that's the truth. But in that pause, if we just like be aware, like I guess of that objective awareness, right? And just notice, like, do I actually want to react on it? What
Mhm.
if I can see it differently? And then essentially that's the power of meditation, or how I was learning it, so that you want to shift towards responding. So you're becoming a conscious human being who responds out of conscious awareness at that moment. And then when you're making that conscious choice, then you're responsible. That's why responding, it's just being responsible for your actions, for your thinking, in a good way of it. And then you're taking that responsibility, you're choosing, you're conscious, and then there is no blame, no shame, no feeling guilty afterwards. And that's powerful. And especially now, through all the coaching and the tools, and also understanding that a lot of times I react to somebody said something, but it's not in that moment, but it's my past history and past attachment and those emotions. And when I stop myself from reacting and just sit there and feel whatever comes, like this wave, and I'm like, ooh, this is the wave of, 25-year-old Jules, who is reacting to completely different thing than my mom said. And now this person brings it back to me, and it's usually my husband. And I've been really good about not reacting from that emotional thing, and also recognizing that, oh, this is my attachment to that story, that part, and what he's saying right now usually has nothing to do with it.
Mhm.
But my little self there, she's like in agony, feeling all the things. And now you're like making me feel like this. But it's all my story. And when I sit there, I'm just like laughing to myself. Oh my God. He said nothing about it,
Mhm.
but my just head went to the other story. And it's very powerful. So when I stop myself and sit with it, and sometimes I need extra time and I just come back and say, like, this is what happened. It was not about you. It was all about me. And thanks for the lesson. And I have more clarity and I have more, um, yeah, it's just powerful to exercise the power of choice and power of that conscious awareness, and also just laugh at your own responses that, like, wow, I lived like that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very profound realization, right? As one starts to do the inner work, and for sure, like all the triggers we experience are gifts, because in some way they're showing us like where we're not free and we can really move through them. I'm fully with that, and I think one of the thing that really helps digest the work and
Mhm,
really help us see kind of beyond even some of the suffering that we create internally. Even like the example you shared, where your husband might have said something and it's like a 25-year-old
mhm,
memory that when you were 25, you had a memory and you were triggered, and that's when your mum triggered you. Even at that point, it wouldn't have been your mum that triggered you. Whatever she did or didn't do might not have been pleasant, but it would have been an initial memory. Like when you're a 6-day-old baby, you're not going to be bothered by what she's saying. Energetically, you might feel some reverence if she's upset or whatever. That's just part of the human connection. So having the compassion and empathy with another human being is one thing, but what we create ourselves as a narrative is always our own responsibility.
mhm,
And just to follow on from that, I would invite you to consider, if you're open to it, is it's not a it's not your 25-year-old self
mhm,
that was playing that out. It was you in the present moment. There's no 25-year-old self other
mhm,
than being in the present moment. It's never an old pattern. That's our way of creating a distance. It's a protection mechanism that the ego develops. No judgment to it.
mhm,
But by saying it's an old pattern, we're creating a distance, saying, I used to be like that, but I'm not. But actually, if it's playing out now, it's our experience. There's nothing wrong with it. It's simply our experience, and we can allow it to be there. And then the next time it tries to get triggered, it's already been allowed. It won't be as strong. And I think that's the cycle we get to work on. We
mhm.
start to inner work.
Yeah, because us doesn't really exist. It's the experience that I still carry about it, like
Yeah.
that narrative and that story. That's why, yeah, if it happened something 20 years ago and I still carry it, like that's gone, that's done. But it's just that experience of it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say you carry. I think even in that, in the language, and this is just merely a reflection, there's no judgment at all. It's if we're carrying something, it adds to the weight. It's
Mm,
just something that's here in
mm,
the present moment, whatever it may be, however we react or however we respond, it's simply here. If we're carrying it, there's this sense of getting rid of it, so to no longer carry it. And like I was saying earlier, like if we dissolve it, it's still there within our experience and available as and when we need it. But if it's processed and we're allowed to process it, then it just gets to dissolve. And
mhm.
actually if it comes up again, then that's the journey that life's presented and we get to do it again. It reminds me of I don't know if you've heard of Gabor Mate. He's
Yes.
a
Yeah.
an expert in
Mhm,
trauma. And not to suggest that you were mentioning specific anything traumatic, but he one of his profound sayings is trauma doesn't exist in your past, it exists in your present. Like
mhm,
it's always here in the present. And I
mhm,
think that relates to the same point. We don't carry anything, it's just what we've got. It's an experience we've got within us
mhm,
as a sensation in the human body, and it's a protection mechanism, but we can still question it, lovingly question it, then assess how it aligns or it doesn't, and just use our intuition to say, well, actually, I can move past this by just allowing it.
mhm. Well, then let's try to talk about how do we process it. So what would be your suggestions or ways that you use yourself or with your clients that you want to share?
Process, like, so can you share like an example, a specific example of what you'd want to process? Doesn't have to be personal, but just as an
Well,
example.
let's talk about, because this is what I work with primarily with my female clients, and this is my story. So I am not good enough, which is
Mhm.
a universal thing, and that starts for everyone um, in that childhood experience. So that I can say for me, I feel like how it all started because my mom was a single parent and I saw her, I think, through my little girl's eyes, like she was doing so much and she was working so hard. So I decided to be a good girl and a good enough girl so that I would not lose her. I would protect her. I feel like from those years, I just like took responsibility to be good. And I remember like one story she was telling that we were somewhere in a public place and I had a birthday and people knew I had a birthday and people were giving me chocolates and candies and whatever. And I had a bag with me and I just tell them, oh, just place them here. And I would not eat them. And the ladies they're telling my mom, she's like, oh my God, your daughter is an angel. So we're giving her candies and she is so diligent and she's so disciplined. And she just puts them all in a bag. So, and I brought this whole bag, to our room. And I was like, oh, here we go. She's like, okay, good job. And that's how I feel like I've always been that good girl and a good enough. And when I'm doing something bad, I'm not good enough. And that's where it goes, like I'm gonna hurt somebody, which essentially I didn't want to hurt her because I saw her like already working and doing so much. So um from that moment on, I've been carrying it, I've been healing it.
Mhm.
Yes, if you want to provide some coaching, but also it's a very similar story to all of my clients. So just like even yesterday, I was working with somebody, same idea. We went into the childhood, the mom came and the girl was speaking. She was trying to express herself, but mom was busy doing other things. From that moment on, she decided she's not good enough to be seen, to be heard, to be expressed and whatever. And that's just like the stories. I have many of them. And that
Yeah.
whole I'm not good enough. And we carry it. Is that a
Yeah.
good example?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great example. Thank you for sharing. So openly and vulnerably. And I think the first thing I would invite you to question, or anyone that was holding space for, would be to actually lovingly question what the story may be, right? Create some awareness around what actually happened. What was the factual truth about what was going on? You talked about this fear of losing your mom or trying to protect her. Both of them very valid, because as a child, you want a parent. It's your survival mechanism. They're not there. Where do you go? How do you get food? How do you get a roof over your head? So a very much a human survival system. But as an absolute truth, my invitation to you, Jules, would be, were you ever going to lose your mom? Like we covered that earlier on, right? Like as an absolute truth, is it a truth that you would have lost her? Right? So that would be the first question. And would you say yes or no? In that moment, would you have lost your mom?
Well, as a child, am I not, like you said, it's a survival because I am kind of dependent on
So
her.
you believed it as a child, yes, but as an absolute truth, and obviously would go deeper in terms of the child and the child answering the question. Um,
Well,
but for
I would not know that if I
yeah,
lose, yeah, it's not in my control. Yes.
yeah,
I,
it's not in your control, and you wouldn't know that at the time. But knowing what you know now, it wasn't an absolute truth that you had to protect her and you would lose her,
Mhm.
right? Even the concept of I'm not good enough, like my invitation to you would be, where does that exist? I'm not good enough. Like it exists somewhere because you're living it and you were breathing it effectively. It was affecting your physiology.
Yeah,
And
it's
where does your concept exist, right? Like it's Where would you say it exists?
it's in my head.
In your head and in your mind, right?
Yeah.
So if it simply exists in your mind, a minute, 1 second it's there, the next second it's gone. It's a fleeting thought at best.
Mhm.
Is it true?
Well, from what I understand now, no.
Oh, yeah. So it's an invitation to really embrace the truth for you and the little girl within you now, not the 6-year-old that existed all those years ago, but the 6-year-old girl that lives within you now, the personality that's really holding on to. I have to live this mechanism of not good enough because I need protection. My question to you simply will be, do you need protecting at all in this moment?
No, not in this moment. No. I think the story where I have still resolving, and I guess, yes, consciously understand it's not true, but since it's there, there is some kind of reason I'm anchoring to that.
Yes.
I feel like that story that I can hurt somebody, for example, like in coaching, right? That's why that part of me, she keeps me going. Oh, let's take another course. Let's do this other thing so that we know everything. We're gonna cover everything. We're not gonna hurt anybody. Like
Yeah.
still there, even though I know it's not true consciously.
Hmm.
What else can you offer, coach me on to help me actually embody and embrace it? And I also know I am part of one. But if there's something in me, like, still
Yeah.
get
That doesn't want to hurt someone, right? Like you're trying to protect the other person, whether that's a client or whoever it is. And your survival mechanism, from what you're saying, is to learn more and more.
yeah,
You're less likely to hurt someone
and I
or take.
understand it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I
Like,
hear that.
logically, I'm there, but there's still some attachment to it.
Yeah, so the second phase to it would be once you create the awareness around it, and again, this would be a deeper conversation if it was a full coaching session, but just the whole context of can you ever hurt anyone you appreciate is not a truth, right? Like which you've just covered. The next question will be where in your body are you hearing something different to that? Like as an emotion or a sensation. When you're feeling this threat from yourself of potentially not doing something correctly or harming someone, where are you feeling that?
In
And
my
really acknowledging it in your belly. Yeah. So can you be with that right now and
Mhm,
just allow it to rise?
mhm.
Even without this narrative of you have to protect someone, you have a sensation you're feeling right now. And you breathe into it some more if you feel open to it.
Mhm.
And can you really focus in on the core of the sensation and feel it rising?
Yes,
And if you're open to it, can you describe it? Whatever way, shape, or form that comes to mind, color, shape.
yes. It's this heat, starts with a heating sensation,
Hmm.
and then sensation of like this uneasiness, like that makes me feel weak.
Okay, like a weakness.
Yeah. And there is like trembling
Hmm.
and
Is the
just
trembling in the core by your stomach, or is it by your tummy area, or is it all through your body?
it's more like above the belly button.
Hmm.
It's kind of around it, and it's kind of moving slowly, like it's just wants to be there
Okay.
or
And,
tries to be there.
and do you want it to be there right now?
No?
Can you be open to trying to allow it to be there, just as it is?
Yes, I am allowing it.
Okay. So just be with the sensation exactly as it is. Continue to breathe. And on the exhale, just truly surrender to it. Just let it do whatever it wants. No different to the sensation of the air touching your face. Like there's no resistance to that. Just bring that same energy to it. And this sense of heat, does it have a color?
Yes, it's red.
It's red. Okay, so there's a red heat. And just continue to breathe into it and just fully allow it to be there. Life in and out. Take a good breath.
It's dissipating.
Good. And allow it to be there exactly as it is. Nothing for you to do with it. And I invite you to just imagine your whole body as this ball of energy. And this sensation in your core, just above your belly button, even the trembling or the sensation, just let it be at one with this whole core energy. That is your body. And in fact, the energy in the room around you. And just see yourself as a witness to all of it. It's not you, it's just something you're seeing and feeling. There are no words in this moment. And just for as long as you need, just continue to breathe in and out. And just let it be there. Let it do its thing. Okay. How's that sensation right now?
Thank you. Well, when you said, did you say ocean? Or no, the whole body? Something that you went to that whole body, like the ocean. And when I went there, it's just like I imagined myself like this big ocean, big container. And then suddenly that sensation just like dissolved everywhere. And this container is just like, okay, we're here. And it felt so good, like this new way of realization that I am this big container for all of it just to dissolve within me, like you said, go to, from, in and out. And it's just kind of went woo in the space. So yeah, and I felt that connection. Like I was this space within the space. Now I'm speaking like Joe Dispenza because I never understood that when he was just saying something like you're in space within a space, you're a space, and it's like, what? I think I got it. Thank you. So yeah, I don't know if you listen to his meditations and stuff like that.
Mm.
He likes to say that space within the space and whatever space. I think I got it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Like I
you're
felt just like
welcome.
this dissolve, like there's this drop into the ocean and it dissolved and the ocean took it and just went into the next ocean and I'm one.
Yeah. And just to if you're open to it, just to complete this for you, my question for you would be the next time you have this sensation that you have to protect someone or you could cause someone harm, I invite you to consider if this sensation arises, all it's trying to do is to go through the experience you've just had. It just wants to be allowed.
Mhm.
In that moment, the focus isn't about changing the language, it's about allowing it as much as you can. And with time, that sensation will just become less and less intense. And the language will change all by itself.
So yeah, and as I allow and it kind of moves through me and out of me, I am back connected to source of who I am, of the essence of who I am, because I'm not spending time and energy on resisting that who I'm not.
Mm,
That usually doesn't feel good. And what doesn't feel good is just a reminder that I'm not in my essence of who I am. I'm seeing myself as a small, less, and not enough, whatever, but that's not my essence. This is just my ego is trying to survive because there is a fear of hurting somebody and it's playing its role. Um, yeah, so and if I give it some love, which is allowing to be there instead of judging it and signing up for another course, but just really allowing. And then when I'm back to my essence, I can make a conscious decision. Do I want to take this course because I love it and because it's fun to learn? Or I'm taking this course because I am trying to run away from something that feels uncomfortable.
absolutely. And it's like what I'm hearing is you no longer need to do the course, you get to do it if you choose to, right? Like this
Yeah.
whole transformation in this whole experience and quite a lot we've discussed here today is going from a stage where you start to use language rather than be used by it. There's
Oh.
no judgment for it, right? Like it's a very subtle difference and a shift from one to the other. And we ebb and flow as humans between both. But ultimately, if you get to do the course because that's what your intuition tells you, you're
Mhm.
just doing it to learn rather than having to learn and I need to learn it
Mhm.
by the language because you're coming from fear and you're surviving. When you get to do it and you choose to do it and you can really sit with it and say, well, actually, I can be with any emotion I have, then you can sit in your power and
Mhm.
actually use the language to take your action going forward and show
Mhm.
it differently.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love how you said it. You can use the language instead of being used by it, which what you said brings me to maybe our next wave of conversation is that need and desire, or want and desire. And that's what I've been also waking up to, is that when I create the relationship with the essence of who I am, which I am love, abundance, freedom, possibility. And I often like to go into the nature, because if we're one and nature is the reflection of me and I'm the reflection of the nature is exactly that. So when you look at it, like, yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities of leaves and trees and grass and all of that. And this is like a reflection of me. So essentially in the nature, everything efficient and sufficient. So there is rain does its job, wind does its job, whatever. Like I don't go and dig the ground, and I'm looking at my window right now and there is flowers, there is grass, there is tree, and I don't know anything for it. Right? So this is, yeah, this is who I am. And when I am in my essence, that's what I've been also kind of diving into understanding. So like I'm just desiring, and when I am coming from that need, the ego, I am in need of something. So it's a different energy. And I guess that need, there is attachment.
Yeah.
And when I'm in my essence and I'm just desiring, is a reflection, because it's good to desire. It feels good to be a human and create, because that's what we're here for, I believe, to create and to express and desire for more. So we can
Mm.
create, because we are coming from the creator and the creator is within me. So that's really powerful. And I wonder if you have something to add between this wanting and having attachment, because I know in your posts you talk quite a bit about attachment, and I think it's a powerful concept. And then just when you're in essence and you're desiring, there's no attachment. Yeah, see what you have to say about that.
Yeah, happy to share. Like it's attachment is the key word, right? Like you just said. So having desires in and of themselves aren't causing you a disservice. It's the attachment to having that desire and what it's going to make you experience about yourself or believe about yourself. Wanting something or saying it has to be a certain way. It's like this concept of conditional love that we touched on earlier, right? Like, I desire to have this, this, and this as long as it makes me feel happy. So, for example, like common thing with clients is having some kind of purpose or a goal.
Mhm.
What I what I commit to is helping them achieve a goal, but don't place all of your enjoyment on the goal at the end. Enjoy the journey as well,
Mhm.
because the more you enjoy the journey, whether you actually get to the goal or not, or it shifts, it 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 dissipates that energy of needing it, right? So attachment, what I've learned, certainly in my spiritual learnings with Vedanta, is like anything that you don't enjoy, you're attached to it because
Mhm.
you want it to be different to what it is right now,
Mhm.
right? So desires are great. Like as a child, when there's no attachment, you pick up a toy and you play with it, and then you move to another one. There's no kind of picking up, say, a set of bricks and thinking, actually, I want to go and play with the ball in 10 minutes, and then that's going to give me happiness. You just enjoy what you have in the moment, accept it for what it is. And when you no longer require it, then you find another desire. You pick up a ball and you move on from it. It's a natural kind of shift of attachment from one thing to another, but in the moment. When we start integrating time and then attaching something that will give us something great in the future or something that did give us joy in the past,
Mhm.
then we start suffering because we're changing what our present is. So I guess in a nutshell, I'd say desires are perfectly valid, and but have them to a degree where you accept everything you have as it is now, and then say, actually, I'm still going to strive or thrive into another direction, and I'm going to wake up tomorrow with the joy of being alive and still commit to my purpose, which
Mhm.
is it may be. Like for me, it's really helping humans have this experience, one conversation at a time, but whatever that might be, that lights you up. But I'm not attached to influencing X amount of human beings. It's just this purpose is this is how I'm going to shift the conversation. And whether it shifts or not isn't my doing. I just simply show up and I do something, but I'm not attached to the outcome of whether it will happen or not. Just have the commitment to go for it. So
Mhm.
that's where it's a healthy kind of relationship with desire and knowing it is simply a thought. It's a direction I want to move in, but you can take lefts and rights on the way.
Yes, and that's the thing. I believe I like what you said, first of all. When you don't enjoy something, then you attach to it. That's a good check-in point. Like, yeah, where I am and that commitment, yes. Instead of attachment, you just commit to your path, if that's the path you chose. And that's what I always tell my clients, like commitment is a big word. It's like this macro commitment, but really what keeps us on a journey is those micro recommitments, because we're humans and we have human experience and things happen and you're just like, forget it. But are you willing to recommit for that big macro commitment? That's what keeps us going. Yes, and something that I wanted to say and I forgot. Yes, with that desire and the need, and yes, the attachment. Yeah, I think what I've learned, and also that yeah, just focusing on what's now and here, like you said. I remember one of the coaches that I followed, he always, like, when he's asked, how many clients do you have? He says, one, who is in front of me. That's it. That's who
Love
I'm
it.
getting to right now, which is very powerful. And yeah, so the concept that I kind of learn and I try to implement and also share with my clients is that be, do, have, because usually we operate when we have this, then I am that. Like when we have this, I'm happy. When I lose 10 pounds, I'm happy or whatever. So in the concept of be, do, have is actually, yes, reconnecting to who I am, declaring and stating this is who I am. And now moving into that path, yes, I have a goal, then yes, there are certain actions to take, but also those actions and those behaviors can only work if your operating system, the being, is matching to those actions, which like we call them aligned actions to who you are. So that's why when you connect to that wholeness of who you are,
Mhm.
and you just have a goal to go for, like with desire. So you create those actions, and that's how you can stay on a path. So, and when you accomplish that, because you are powerful human being who can do things. But
Mm.
if your mind goes into all those directions and you're just catching up so that you are complete, so that you're happy, so that you're joyful, that's where we all create those self-sabotaging behaviors. And that's where coaching becomes powerful, having another brilliant mind sitting and helping you get through all the garbage that we've accumulated so that you can actually reconnect to your wholeness and your who you are, which is freedom, possibility, love, which is beautiful. But what I wanted to say, here go, I came to my thought. I think what also we, like you said, we have a desire and certain goal, but there are so many possibilities to get there.
Yeah.
We know we're not attached to it and it's not defining us. We're actually having this window to open to miracles that
Mhm.
exist everywhere. But that for us, again, requires for us to be in a wholeness so that we apply trust and we apply faith and we also stay open to possibilities of miracles. And that's where powerful, I think, transformation really is. But it's so hard for the human ego because when we are controlling and we're perfectionist and we're whatever
Yeah.
because of all attachment, right? It's harder to transition to that other realm of possibility. And maybe this is where we can just touch a little bit. I know you talk a lot in your posts about the concept of that ego and the essence. What
Mhm.
is it actually? Because we kind of sort of apply to them, but maybe for my audience who are not into spirituality yet, or kind of here, but not quite getting it,
Yeah.
how would you define that ego and the essence, and what's the big deal?
It's the ego is effectively just a portion of the mind, right? That constantly wants to live in its own identity and survival. But it's actually simply a collection of thoughts.
Mhm.
The ego isn't like something you can grasp and say, here is my ego. It's a collection of thoughts that repeat and they flow, they come and go, and it's a survival mechanism.
Mm.
Essence is undeterred by any of it. It's just simply witnessing it. And
Mm.
that's effectively when we really talked about returning to silence earlier. One of the now that the kind of avenues in between the two of that is this ability as humans that we have to reflect. Right. As far as my understanding is, most animals don't necessarily have it to the, especially not to the degree that humans have. Like we can really reflect and curiously question what the ego is saying. Is it saying this is a threat here? I have to have this perfect before I do it, or if I'm going to commit so many hours to doing this, I have to have this outcome, which is the attachment. If we can sit and reflect, that's one of the most profound and powerful tools, if you like, we have available to us as humans, where we can really rationally sit and justify, does it make sense for me to go out and spend X, Y, and Z on all these courses? Because I'm trying to fill a narrative that's saying I might hurt someone, like something you shared earlier. Well, actually, no, because I have this great feedback from clients. I know I'm a good coach, etc., etc. I have all these tools that I've already learned, and I can hold space. So then, slowly, as we start to reflect on this, the ego just simply starts to dissolve.
Mm.
This reflection part becomes stronger. The
Mm.
reflection part's always available, but because the ego is so used to being at the forefront,
Mm.
it's constantly just that go, go, go. Like I'm going to commit myself 100 miles an hour, put my
Mm.
foot down 100 miles an hour, and I'm going to achieve this goal, and I'm going to force myself through it, which does work. I'm not saying it doesn't, but we're doing it from a state of survival, so it's very exhausting pretty
Yeah.
quick, right? It's not very good for our physiology, even for our overall mindset. Whereas if we can surrender a little and just reflect, well, actually, that's not a truth, and this is not a truth. How about if I just commit to achieving this goal?
Mhm.
And then on a day-to-day basis, I'm just going to show up and continue to reflect. And reflection doesn't have to be hours and hours. It can just be a few minutes and curiously ask some questions and then follow through with it. And slowly, this part of us that really starts to reflect becomes stronger. And I think then you really start to see the gap between the ego and essence. There's no real gap, but just in terms of contextualizing it, just to see that there is this other ability we have as humans to be very calm and collective and still have the passion to commit to what we want to achieve. Like, ironically, we'd have more energy to do the things that we're trying to do because we're
Yeah,
not resisting them. So
yeah.
does that answer your question?
Yes, uh-huh. So yeah, and essentially like reflection, what I guess it allows us to do when we practice and open for it is to drop into the body and connect with the intuition, because it's not like this, scary secret thing that we have no access to, but just, yeah, practicing awareness, reflection, it slows you down and you just start accessing another part of your system, because like we live in our mind, but there is another big part of our experience, which is the body, and it carries a lot of stuff. And that would be the moment when you're just like accessing that as well. Oh, and now you're connecting. And that's how I guess the mind, the ego just slows down and allows you to feel what is there. And then from that, you just kind of start learning how to trust all of those experiences that you may be like avoiding, might have avoided in the past. Um, that's what I like always see, like, your mind lives in the body and the body is connected to the mind. So if you start accessing both systems plus your essence, right? Like you're an empowered human being, which is first and foremost, you're a being who does the doing, you're a being who does the thinking. And if you
Yeah,
get back to your being more often and start expressing your doing from being, then you're more connected to your, I don't know, human experience and the essence. Um, and that's what's powerful. It's you are the being because it's the energy of you, it's what you resonate. That's
mhm,
why, like you said, I might be taking these courses, but my energy is like survival. That's
yeah,
why, like, let me read everything, let me grasp everything, and whatever I don't understand, like I know that energy. And I also am getting to know and trusting the energy where it's just trusting and it's just slower and it's just questioning. So like lately, I made a commitment with myself, like I am not going to take another course unless I am doing it from the place of abundance of who I am already and not
yeah.
just not to hurt somebody. And it's been quite an interesting experience like that. I have to like stop myself. Like I can see my hand goes to click on the button and I just go, no, we have to, we have to slow down. We
That's
have
the
to.
reflection. Yeah,
Mhm.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like this little, fight going on, but I have fun with that. It's nothing like crazy. Yeah, and it's powerful. And that's the thing, like we can see how simple these tools are. And that's the thing, because of the simplicity, like it's simple to use them and it's
Mhm,
simple not to use them. Right. Or it's easy to, go to the gym and it's easy not to go to the gym. Right.
yeah.
That's the same idea. That's why it's powerful to definitely work with a guide and go through the process and the tools and just start applying them so that you can also start doing the same without any particular guidance as well. But what I wanted to just reflect a little bit, we have just a few minutes, you had this really powerful quote, like you kind of like write your post in quotes and are very powerful. So like when we go to
Thank
your
you.
account, I think people have to follow you. If they're open for like this, what? And then you have to reflect on it. So, and I might not say it exactly how you said it, but something that in terms of the ego, you said that um something that ego is the identity, but it's who defines you, but that's not who you are. And that's the choice. So yeah, it's like a jacket that defines you, but it's not who you are. And it's actually you have a choice to define something like this, but you said it very eloquently. Do you remember that one?
I think I remember it as a gist. I tend to, the quotes that I put on Instagram are just as they come to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think it would have been something along the lines of like, we are not the ego, we have an ego.
Yes, that's it.
That
That's it.
which is
Yes.
an identity, yeah. So that which is an identity for the ego is a choice for you, right? So the ego will say, I am not good enough, but
That's
that
what
doesn't
it
mean
was.
that's who you are. So yeah, absolutely. And I just want to just offer something on the reflection that you touched on earlier. This
Mhm.
whole concept of mind and body. I'll be very brief with it because I know we've been speaking for a while now. It's the mind actually doesn't live within the body, as my understanding. The body lives within the mind. And actually, if we can visualize that, like there's this mind and then there's a body within it, we say the mind is within the body because we relate it to the brain. But if you did an MRI scan of the brain, you're not going to find any thoughts, right? You're just going to see actual activity going on, but you don't actually see the thoughts and the images that we see pop up. So the mind is actually something that's a lot more subtle than the body. And it's a good opportunity to sit with this idea of reflection, because this reflection part is the outer part of the mind. And then there's the ego, and then there's the body that lives within it and reacts to it, and the sensations and the energy that flow through it. And the beautiful part about coaching, as you alluded to, is we offer clients the opportunity to learn how to uncover that muscle of reflection within themselves by reflecting to them what we're hearing as we hold a space. That's kind of my very brief explanation of how and why I coach, and I sense it resonates with your energy as well. We just simply reflect to a client what
Mhm.
we're hearing them say, what we're feeling them say, what we're sensing for them, and what they're actually sensing. And then they can really start to strengthen this muscle of reflecting for themselves and really strengthen that outer membrane of the mind, which is the reflection, the ability to reflect for themselves eventually, right? Because
Mhm.
coaching is simply a journey and it's not like a permanent relationship.
Yes. So yeah, if we just change that name to a reflector, and we're like lending them that skill because we've been practicing for a while. And then when they become more proficient in that, they can take it with them. That's why really the investment might be for a few months, but essentially they're getting tools for the rest of their life.
Yeah, once you strengthen that muscle, then it's just continually practicing with it and it doesn't have to be as intense. It's just day to day. Yeah.
Yes. And also just like this one-on-one experience, this is that power of one. So I always imagine going back to the ocean. So when we throw the stone, it just creates that ripple effect.
Mm,
That's what I see in my clients, even though they come to me and say like, I want to have a better relationship with my spouse, but I work with the woman. So, and it's always about her. So, and as I help her, yeah, do her own reflective process and get back to her essence and step into her power and show up as a loving person that she is instead of that survival, um, everything changes.
mm,
And that's my favorite reflection from my clients when they go through this whole thing and start feeling the change. They just say, I'm not sure, like, I don't know. Is it true what's happening? Because everything is the same. I mean, I'm married to the same guy, I have the same kids, I go to the same work, but everything is so different. And
mm,
it's so good. Like, I don't know. What happened? And I was telling like, well, you've created that. You are a powerful creator. And because of your commitment and investment in yourself, look how many people benefited. Because, yeah, everybody around her just changed and became better because that's a reflection. That's that reflection of who we are. And other people reflect that back. So that's the power of that transformative change, one person at a time. And that's how our world gets better when we come to our essence. Then the whole world just recalibrates to what's already true, the essence.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
100%.
that's
Yeah.
the powerful coaching. And yeah, so we are basically to our end. Thank you so much for your time. It's been absolute pleasure to talk to you. Yeah, I can talk to you for another 3 hours, but I know we have a time in life. So tell us how people can reach out to you, especially like I know you work with males and females, so you are both. And I know some of my clients are also looking for like female coach. I mean, female, male coach. So tell us how they can find you, how they can work with you, what your, I mean, I kind of read your introduction, what you specialize on, but if there's anything you want to add here.
Yeah, no, first of all, thank you for having me on. I feel honored to be here, and it's been a very deep and profound conversation, as always. So thank you for that. In terms of people getting in contact with me, I'm on Instagram at Parm Bains Official. So just follow me and DM me on there. My website, palmbains.com, is coming. It's part of my journey. So I'm working through that at the moment, but that should be coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a bit longer. And in terms of coaching, yeah, I'm open. I coach males and females in any realm of life. Just anyone that feels they want to be somewhere they're not, and they don't feel where they are right now, they're aligned with, and I can help them with
Yeah.
some reflection to see what the answers are within them, right? It's not about me giving the answers as a coach, it's me helping them find the answers that are already within them. That might sound a bit esoteric, but it's so true. Trust me. Like I've lived that journey, right? From a
Mhm.
just never been able to feel anything or constantly led by his thoughts that I can sit and reflect. So the muscle's always there to be exercised. And that's what I help humans do. So yeah, that would be the best way to get in touch on Instagram. Thank you.
Yes, and of course, I will be including all your links there as well. And yes, that's the power of coaching, just to help you get there a little bit faster and with a little bit more help. Because when we're too close in our mind, that feels like this is the reality and there is no way out. So
Yeah.
it's just like that monkey who got that banana in a jar, you know? If she would have only let go.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where the power of coaching comes. We're just kind of hold our clients' hands and helping them to get to their level of letting go here and there so that they can transcend to where they need to be, or just really back to their essence, like we talked about today. So well, thank you again for being here. And yes, it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you and also experience your coaching. So I absolutely love your spiritual realm and understanding of the world. That helped me so much. And I know it's going to help many, many other people. Thank you so much. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for listening.